Las Vegas, Nevada, the landmark of modern gambling. More than 30 million people flock here every year, hoping to hit the jackpot. They'll bet $115 billion to do it, and odds are they will go home with less than they came with. Some people don't like those odds, so they cheat.
Cheating probably nets somewhere in the millions, if not tens of millions of dollars.
And some of the most difficult cheaters to catch are the ones who know how to work the system best, from casino employees to people throwing the games and those trying to stop them. It's an insider's war on the casino floor.
It does really boil down to good guys versus bad guys. If you're coming in to cheat and to get what's not yours, you're breaking the law and you're on the other side.
In exclusive surveillance video, cheaters are exposed doing what they do, and security responds in force. It's Vegas from the inside. Some of the most common cheats caught on tape are fairly simple. Past posting is making a bet after you know the winning number. Operating as a team, the man at the right of the screen is working with the man at the top of the screen. In an effort to distract the dealer who is not in on the scam, the man on the right places a late bet that is rejected. With the dealer's focus elsewhere, the cheater at the top of the screen adds more chips onto the winning number for a payout of 35 to 1. Other cheats are fairly complex. Here, a woman strategically uses her purse as an attempt to block security cameras. Then, her partner in crime comes in to block with his body. The man seated is using a specially designed tool that's inserted into the mouth of the video poker machine. He's attempting to trick the payout sensor into triggering a jackpot. No matter what they know or don't know about security, cheaters always think they're smarter. Rest assured, the casinos are watching 24/7. And if anything defines security, it's the eye in the sky.
I do believe there are more cameras in Las Vegas than Washington, D.C. So here in Las Vegas, Big Brother is watching.
It's estimated that there are tens of thousands of surveillance cameras blanketing nearly every inch of every casino. And when something goes down, they will have it on tape.
It's eyes where we can't be. So it's a force multiplier, if you will, for the security and the surveillance staff.
Since their earliest days, casinos have tracked the action on the floor. For decades, surveillance was little more than beefy men walking the floor, looking for obvious cheats. But when cheaters upped their game, so did casinos. Catwalks were the big breakthrough. Suddenly, surveillance could invisibly monitor the games from above with the help of two-way mirrors. In downtown Vegas, the Hotel Nevada opened its doors in 1907. Renamed the Golden Gate Casino in 1955, it still has the remnants of their catwalk, the original eye in the sky. Operators got into the catwalk through a secret entrance on the roof.
So there you see it. That's the cart that they would lay down face first on, and then they'd push themselves up and down the track, exactly like being in their mind, because this would be closed so that nobody knew he was in there.
While older hotels are renovated to keep up with cheaters, the new casinos are designed with security in mind. The Aria Resort and Casino was constructed from the ground up to be cheat-proof. Security Chief Ted Whiting spent more than 3 years helping to design Aria's state-of-the-art surveillance system.
Anyone who's thinking of cheating Vegas should think twice, because we're getting better at this, especially specifically at Aria. We're getting really good at it.
With unprecedented access, we take an insider's view of one of the most sophisticated and restricted security setups ever built.
Aria is one of the most technologically advanced casinos. We've got over 1,100 cameras on our casino floor.
In the deepest recesses of the hotel's basement is the Surveillance Nerve Center. From here, they can oversee more than 150,000 square feet of casino floor, including 145 gaming tables and almost 2,000 slot machines.
We have 7 workstations, about 40 monitors, and of course we have access to all 3,500 cameras on this city center campus.
Surveillance has come a long way. Even I started in the mid-90s, and the cameras were still pretty good. Back in the old days, we used analog cameras. So an analog camera, they come in two varieties. PTZ, which is pan, tilt, zoom. And that means that our operators can move them. They can zoom in and out, back and forward, up and down. The other cameras that we used were fixed cameras. And those cameras are just a camera that sees one spot and doesn't move. So those are good. And we did surveillance for forever, for 30 years with those cameras, and it worked out fine. When we opened ARIA, though, we wanted to take the best of the old technology and blend that with the best of the new technology, which is HD cameras or high-def cameras. And what that allowed us to do is increase our resolution by 3 times. Now we have the luxury of reviewing the video. We can prove that somebody cheated, and we can see it a lot better.
In this cheat, the cameras caught what was almost too fast for the human eye. The cheater seated on the left is playing blackjack and wins when the dealer busts. The dealer pays the cheater on his original bet, but the player flicks back the payout and then seamlessly replaces the stack, including a higher value chip placed on the bottom. Here it is again in slow motion, the flick and replacement. The cheater is indignant that the dealer didn't pay out properly. The pit boss is called over. They review the tape, and ultimately, the player is asked to leave the casino.
A lot of times when somebody's doing something dishonest, they're trying so hard to act natural, and in doing so, they're becoming unnatural.
In the surveillance war on cheating, one of the newest weapons is the 360-degree high-definition camera. Similar to Google Earth's ability to see city street details from outer space, the 360 system is like having dozens of cameras digitally combined as one image. This bird's-eye view gives observers the advantage of going back in time and zooming in or out to see exactly what happened.
360 technology is not used as a live viewing tool. This is strictly a forensics tool that's used after the fact. This is where we would go back after an incident has happened, so that way we can zoom into the picture and see where the patron has gone or the theft has taken place. And we do not miss anything on the casino floor. We can go back 7 days and virtually drop into the image and look around and watch a patron walk from one area of the casino all the way across the other area.
For surveillance insiders, the key to catching thieves is being able to identify them. Older eye-in-the-sky systems have lower resolution cameras that make it difficult to see faces clearly. To solve that, the ARIA's design and layout was created with high-quality cameras shooting at eye level. And by forcing patrons to go through camera-heavy choke points, narrow paths in and out of the casino, surveillance is guaranteed a clean face shot.
We can actually grab individuals' faces and grab great ID shots. We have about 50 throughout the casino, so at some point, with you walking through the casino, we're gonna get your face.
I don't have a bunch of people, but I have 1,100 cameras. I'm gonna put some of those cameras on choke points, which is the skinny part of the casino. So now we use these cameras every day. Had we not put in these choke points, we'd never have a face shot of them. We have a list of over 6,000 people that have done things that they shouldn't do in casinos. Before they even arrive in the hotel, we put them through a filter in our database of people who have been trespassed or arrested here. So how do we protect the guests? We stop them before they even check in.
In this exclusive footage provided by the ARIA, we can see from the inside exactly how the coordinated effort of the 360-degree cameras work when combined with the hotel's choke points. The couple who are playing the slots walk away without realizing they've left a purse behind. Within minutes, they realize the purse is gone and contact security.
Security will call and say, hey, we've got a woman whose purse is missing, and she was on row 100. We will track that back, even though it happened 5 or 6 hours ago, with our 360 cameras. So we'll track the thief back to the point where they stole the purse.
Using the 360-degree cameras, they can literally travel back in time and focus on the exact area around the slot machine where the purse was left behind. Soon after the couple leaves, the 360-degree cameras reveal a man in a black shirt carrying a white jacket. He looks around, then settles at the machine next to the one where the couple had been playing. He looks around again, picks up the purse, and quickly conceals it in his jacket. He makes his way out of the slot area, but to leave the casino, he must pass through a specific path or choke point where the ARIA's cameras are focused for his close-up.
We catch them with a choke point camera. Now we take that picture of their face and send it out to our security network, our surveillance network, and then we catch them.
Almost instantaneously, the man's face is uploaded to casinos throughout Vegas, and in a couple of hours, he is arrested and booked for theft. At the Aria, the high-tech security system is a definite advantage. But the real inside secret to successful surveillance is having a team who can proactively ID cheaters before they strike.
We can look at somebody and tell, okay, they're all right, or no, oh, that behavior doesn't make sense. When you see people doing things that they're not supposed to do, they behave differently. They give off tells. Just like a poker player is looking for tells, our surveillance people look for tells for cheats.
A classic cheat found in Vegas happens when a player tries to swap or introduce cards from outside the game. Insiders call it card mucking. Here, the Aria has a mucker in its crosshairs.
And card mucking is when a player brings a card in to make sure that he wins, and then he's got to get the bad card out again.
So what they'll do is their hand will be flat on the table. So the other hand moves around and works, and they're drinking their drinks, and they're picking their nose, scratching their head, and this hand works. This hand can't work, though, because there's a card under it.
Because each casino has its own proprietary card design, for the mucking to work, the cheater needs to acquire specific cards with the same design and logo. This is often done by sneaking them off one at a time, or having an insider who works at a casino steal an entire deck for them.
You can see the guy's manipulating the cards in a strange way. When he reaches into his jacket, though, we start to think something might be wrong. Now we see that the card has left our field of view. We can't see it. It's obscured by his hand. Now his hand is attached to the table. It's a perfect example of a flat hand as a tell.
Another cheat casinos watch for is known as card marking.
We deal our games face up when we can, and the reason for that is game protection. If the cards are face up on the layout, the players aren't allowed to touch them. Therefore, they can't mark them, right? Well, that's not right, because we've got video of a guy right here who's marking cards face up. And he just made a mark. His bet loses, he comes out with $100. While he does it, though, he notches the card. He had a piece of glass attached to his thumbnail, and he was hitting the card every time he collected a bet or he put out a new bet. So he touches the card and marks it with that piece of glass.
We suspect this person is cheap. We don't know he is, but we suspect he might be. So when he walks over to the craps table, we think, okay, this is it. Maybe we're gonna catch something here. And yep, he's making late bets in the field, which means he watches the dice land, he sees it's a winner, and then he throws his money down. The funny thing is when he's doing this, we're watching him, we're getting security staged to go grab him. So there was no question, he was found guilty. This was easy, the video never lies.
Once they catch the cheaters on camera, hotel security works with Nevada Gaming to make the arrest.
We'll make arrests on the floor simply to send a message to both the cheaters and to those who may be involved with them that they're not going to get away with this.
Catching the cheater red-handed is important, so speed is everything when it comes to the arrest. Remember the man who was swapping cards?
We had security go grab him. They didn't grab him quick enough, though, and he was able to get his arm free. He reached into his jacket, popped the card in his mouth, and ate it.
As for the card marker, the glass was still on his thumb when they made the arrest. And the past poster? Once outnumbered, he went down quietly.
The gambling that they are doing is that whether or not they're going to go to jail and how much time they're going to do. You know, you get caught, that's it. Do your time. If you're a criminal and you're a cheat, going to jail is part of your job description.
There is another kind of insider working Las Vegas, and it's one that has casinos worried. It's when a dealer crosses over to the dark side. Even the most sophisticated tools can't always stop the casino insider who knows exactly how to cheat fast and cheat big.
About 30% of our arrests involve employees, one way or another. We have seen numerous cheats involving millions of dollars with the dealer or other pit personnel.
The story of one of Vegas's most infamous cheats begins far from the bright lights of the Strip in 2002 with a dealer named Tran who works at the small Saquon Casino near San Diego, California.
He was a gambler through and through. He dealt cards at Sycuan for a while, but then he got fired.
Armed with an advantage of knowing how security works from the inside, Tran hatches his plan to cheat the casino. But to do it, he needs help, and he's got it in all the right places. His wife, Van Tran, is also a dealer at Sycuan, and her brother, Tai Tran, just happens to manage the Asian table games.
Tai Tran knew intimately how each game worked, so he could help develop their protocols of dealing for security, what have you. He also hired all the dealers, so that's where his knowledge came in.
The Tran gang focuses on mini baccarat, a table game where 2 hands are dealt per round. One is for the player, and the other is for the house or the bank. Players can bet on either hand. The hand closest to a 9 wins. Rules allow players to openly track and record cards and winning hands.
It's part of the game, so you can have a sheet of paper writing each the order of the cards that are coming out, which is kind of how they got the idea of tracking cards, because you're allowed to do it.
A member of the Tran Organization tracks the cards. Then, the dealer, who's also a member, uses his skill set to pull off one of the oldest tricks in the book, the false shuffle.
A false shuffle is simply making it appear that you're mixing the cards, but you're really not.
This is Van Tran. So you can see there's a large chunk of cards that are protected right here. And as we can see, it's going to be on the top of the deck. So she continues to have a very thick stack of cards throughout the whole shuffling process where she's protecting it.
Now, let's suppose that you recorded the exact order of these cards as the dealer picked them up. The dealer's in the scam, and the dealer keeps the cards in order. So for this demonstration, I'm going to put these cards face up on the top of the discard rack. On the next round, same thing would happen. The cards would get picked up in order. Now it comes time for the shuffle, and the dealer would mark the spot and then shuffle to it. All of these shuffles will be fine. No false shuffles. Not a false shuffle. Now here's the group that was recorded. This is the only shuffle that will be false. And watch carefully. It looks as though I'm shuffling the cards. In fact, I'm not mixing the cards.
After the dealer finishes the false shuffle, the Tran players at the table must wait for their tracker to signal them that the winning sequence of cards are in play. Because they know the exact order of these cards and who's going to win, all bets are dramatically increased.
They only needed one person who really knew what the betting scheme was. So that one person will make a bet, and then everyone else that's with them at the table will make that same bet. All of a sudden, the entire table wins.
To perfect their skills, the Tran Organization does a number of test runs at the small, quiet Sycuan casino. At first, they stay low-key, keeping winnings down to a few $100s. But eventually, surveillance spots Van Tran not following shuffling procedure. She is fired. But by then, they know their scam works, and they're ready for larger action. By early 2003, the Tran Organization has expanded to include about 15 family members. Soon, they take their cheat on the road to Cache Creek Casino near Sacramento, California. Before long, they are making big money. In just 1 month, they clear $158,000. They want more, but to do it, they'll need more insiders who are willing to fix the deck.
Because they went from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, they had to have different dealers cheating in every jurisdiction.
They would go into different casinos, and they would just have a friendly chat up with the dealers. They tended to go for the people that might already have had a gambling problem, so they would pick out their vulnerabilities if they might have some financial situation or if they're just looking for a little bit of excitement.
If someone is on the fence about joining the organization, the Tran recruiters get creative.
Sometimes Van Tran would go into the casinos and kind of flirt with the guys, trying to get them to, well, maybe we could date a little bit if you want to try doing this cheat with us. And they would just play up that it's a great lifestyle, you're going to be so happy that you joined our organization, and all you have to do is learn how to do the shuffle.
By 2003, the Tran Organization consists of several former dealers and card trackers. They all have inside knowledge of how to fix the game of mini baccarat, and conceal it from anybody watching. They crisscross the country, scamming smaller casinos, winning thousands every time.
They will sit there for 2 or 3 decks possibly, and then they will leave, and they'll leave the city or the state.
The Tran gang is long gone by the time casino accountants notice something is wrong.
They have it down to a science where they want to know how each table is doing. So that's where the first inkling that something was wrong came from, because the table might lose 8% a night, and all of a sudden this specific table with this specific dealer is losing 15 to 20% a night. So they went to their video and realized it was all the same people playing. Since a lot of these gamblers that are cheating, they're all using their player clubs cards to get the free perks that go along with it. So the casinos have a record of exactly who was playing at the table, how much they cashed in for, how much they won.
At a gaming conference in 2003, casino security directors start to compare notes.
There had been intelligence in the community that members of the Tran family and Feng Trung were up to something. One of the security operators at Cache Creek Casino outside Sacramento had noticed that there was a certain group of people that were doing something wrong at their tables. They think they're cheating, but they don't know exactly what.
The FBI begins trying to document the Tran Organization's activities. The gang runs their operation with military precision, using cell phones and hand signals to communicate with each other. In this video, gang member Willie Tran is tracking cards and calling them back to a van where they are being recorded. He keeps his hair long to cover the cell phone earpiece.
He would bring his girlfriend with him so that his girlfriend would be playing, and he could be reading off the cards, but to anyone around them, it looks like he's just talking to his girlfriend.
After months of honing their skills, they are confident and believe they are ready to cheat Vegas.
They knew that Las Vegas would have been a cash cow for them if they could figure out how to get through their security. The security in Vegas is world-class, and they knew it.
In late 2004, the Tran gang pulls into Vegas, but their reputation precedes them.
We were aware of the Tran Organization, that they had been operating in California, and we thought that they were the possibility they would come to Las Vegas. We were not aware that Mr. Tran here was going to show up, but in fact, he was one of the ones that was running the operation here in Las Vegas.
In the video, we see Fat recording the order of the cards as they are played. After the false shuffle, Tran waits patiently for the portion of the deck that was never shuffled. Those are the cards they have the exact order for.
There are 3 members of the organization that are sitting around the table, and Fat is on the edge, signaling to these guys. The cards that Fat had recorded earlier start to play out on the table.
Here's how it unfolds. Fat Tran signals to the table that it's time to bet. The player in the center bets on the banker, knowing it is the guaranteed winner. Soon thereafter, other Tran insiders put down larger wagers on the same banker bet.
This is an instance where they won $18,000 between the 3 of them.
After the hit, Fat quietly rips up his handwritten log of the card order and disposes it in 2 trash cans in different areas of the casino. He doesn't know it, but everywhere he goes, he's on camera. Security collects the trash and pastes the baccarat log back together. After 3 years of cheating across the country, authorities have what no one else could get: the hard evidence to bust the gang insider, Fat Tran.
They were on him like a hawk at that point. In December of '04, they arrested him for conspiracy to cheat, and several of his members, including the dealer at Palace Station. Their greed, basically, of wanting more money and wanting more casinos to cheat at was their downfall.
Although weakened after the Vegas bust, the remaining members of the organization still won't give up the cheat, but once again, they'll need to find dirty dealers on the inside.
They were definitely more visible. And then since they were spreading out across the country trying to find these casinos, they were introducing a lot of new people to this scheme who went immediately to their security and their supervisor saying, there's this group out here and they're wanting to cheat.
The FBI also knows the gang needs dealers and are ready to help them find one.
John, how you doing? Hey, man, how you doing?
This is the actual undercover footage from the FBI sting as they catch insider Tran trying to recruit a dealer.
We have a confidential informant who actually was a former dealer that was approached by the Trans. He got caught, and now he's trying to work off the beef. And he's introducing an undercover agent, who is this other gentleman. The undercover agent is posing as someone that's a dealer.
You know, what we do, surveillance cannot see.
Here, Fung is describing to his prospective dealer, that you really need to know what's happening in a casino and what's happening with the security and what happens with the protocol to get away with things.
You only steal like once a month.
But Tran, like most crooks, can't seem to practice what he preaches. And in the same breath that he talks about being low-key, he brags about the spoils of his cheating.
I have 7 cars myself, man. Oh, for real? Okay. Turbo, Porsche, Mercedes, like park everywhere in front of my garage. Everybody know me.
In May 2007, armed with overwhelming video evidence, the authorities move in on the rest of the Tran Organization. Tran and 46 other members of the gang are indicted for racketeering, money laundering, and theft. Tran is sentenced to 70 months in prison and ordered to pay back millions of dollars to the casinos and the IRS. Tran is sentenced to 54 months in prison. In January 2011, Tran pleads guilty to racketeering charges and is awaiting sentencing.
We were able to prove that they had cheated $7 million over the course of the scheme. We do believe that they took more than that, but we were able to prove $7 million.
Not every insider comes from the casino. In the world of betting on professional and college sports, all it takes is an athlete who crosses the line to become the ultimate insider. Sports betting is big business in Las Vegas. In just 1 year, $2.4 billion was legally wagered at casino sportsbooks. And where there is money, there are cheaters.
I would say basketball would be the sport that would be easiest to do some business with, because you get 1 or 2 key players and they either play a bad game or they don't suit up. That affects the game dramatically.
Through the years, Vegas sportsbooks have had to deal with fixed fights, horse races, basketball, baseball, and football games, sometimes at the hand of a crooked player, owner, or referee. So the action on each of these games is closely monitored because an intentionally missed goal can cost millions. Stephen Smith of Dallas, Texas, has been shooting hoops since he was 6 years old.
My mother said once I laid eyes on it, that was my sport, and I just had to have a ball in my hands.
At 40, Smith seems like any other weekend warrior. It's hard to imagine he was once the main player in one of the most notorious college basketball betting scandals to ever hit Las Vegas.
When you're in your early 20s and you're immature, and all you're thinking about is girls, money, and stuff like that, you don't think about the consequences.
In 1994, senior Stephen Smith is captain of the Arizona State Sun Devils basketball team and a rising star. Pundits are already considering number 44 a lock for the NBA draft.
People started talking about NBA. I just kept working hard, just hoping, one day that my dream would come true.
Smith wants the NBA and everything that goes with it. But living large costs money, and Smith has none.
A young, immature athlete that's going to school, full scholarship, only getting $400-500 a month.
Then he meets 22-year-old campus bookie Benny Silman, who introduces him to the world of sports betting.
Met him as soon as I got to campus. He was always around the basketball players.
But unfortunately, Smith is not nearly as good at gambling as he is at shooting hoops. Soon, Smith is $10,000 in debt to the local bookie. With no money, he's in trouble until bookie Silman offers him a way out.
He said, fix the game. He was like, just control, the outcome. So you can win the game. But just make sure you don't win by however many points I tell you.
Oh, baby, you win by 1, baby. That's right.
What Silman is talking about is called point shaving, and it's illegal. At the time, Smith had never heard of it. But he figured as long as he didn't have to lose the game, no harm, no foul.
You know where I'm from, you say, gambling, you talk about shooting dice, playing poker. I wasn't educated to point shaving.
To understand point shaving, you have to understand sports betting. As strange as it sounds, casinos don't care who wins or loses. They just want half of the gamblers to bet on one team and half on the other.
Every game is not an even game. One team is usually superior to the other, so we attach points to it, so it balances the betting out.
The most common bet is based on the point difference between the two teams at the end of the game. To make teams even for betting, every game is handicapped. A point spread, or betting line, is used to level the playing field so the underdog can be equal to the favorite. The point differential, or spread, is determined by Vegas odds makers who are hired by the casinos to figure out how many points a team will be favored by.
So that bettors on both teams have an equal opportunity to win the bet.
Point shaving changes the odds when a player or group of players makes sure that their team's margin of victory is less than the point spread determined by the bookies. In order for Smith to get out of debt, Silman will tell him how many points he can win by, and no more. For taking part in the scam, Silman agrees to wipe out Smith's debt and pay him $20,000 for each game he shaves.
So I'm thinking, I can win the game? Oh, okay, cool.
On January 27, 1994, Silman and Smith kickstart their scam against Oregon State. Las Vegas oddsmen set Smith's ASU as 14-point favorites. Silman and gang bet heavily on Oregon State. Smith fixes the game by slacking on defense. The Sun Devils win, but only by 6 points. Since ASU doesn't cover the Vegas spread, Silman wins. After the game, campus bookie Silman delivers Smith's payout, $20,000 for a job well done.
Did I accept the money? Yes. I was trying to live that fast life.
Silman and Smith fixed 2 more games without drawing any heat. Flush with success, Silman lets a lot of people in on the secret. Silman's friends from Chicago and New Jersey fly to Vegas for the next game. March 5th, 1994, Saturday morning. Smith and his Sun Devils prepare to face the University of Washington at home. There's nothing extraordinary about this game, yet. In Las Vegas, college-age gamblers hit the sports books as soon as they open.
They were like a bull in a china shop when they were making their bets. They just kept coming repeatedly, instead of like every couple hours maybe popping in and making a play.
Although the Sun Devils are 11-point favorites, somehow all the wagering is on Washington. In response to the lopsided betting, the point spread, which is also called the line, keeps dropping as odds makers desperately try to even out the action.
The line on the Arizona State game opened at 11 and it dropped to 3 by tip-off, and that type of movement on a college basketball game is unheard of.
Sportsbook managers are concerned. They check with the other casinos.
They found that pattern of betting was only here in Las Vegas and was all over town. At that time, there was no knowledge that a crime was being committed. We just knew that something odd was happening.
The betting action is way out of the ordinary. Suspicious sportsbook managers alert the NCAA.
In a normal Pac-10 game, regular season, we might write 8,000-10,000, somewhere in that general area. But for this particular game, we wrote well into the low 6 figures. It was an unbelievable flurry of action on that game.
At tip-off, the betting line has dropped so dramatically, ASU can only win by 2 points or less for Smith to successfully throw the game. The pressure is on. At halftime, Smith's fix is working. The score, Arizona State 25, Washington 23. Sun Devils coach Bill Frieder is given the heads up that something is not right. In the locker room, the coach confronts Smith, the team's captain.
He was furious. Yeah, I can't say it on camera, but it's some bleep, 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 bleep going on. Be afraid to get angry.
After Frieder's halftime tongue lashing, Smith abandons the point shaving scheme.
Wasn't even nothing to think about. It was over. We went out second half and blew them out.
Most observers reported this game as a game of two halves. The first half, ASU was totally inept, and the second half, they were, Final Four quality team.
The Sun Devils crush Washington 73-55. Everyone who bet on Washington is out of luck. Smith knows he has to face an angry Silman who lost all of his bets.
Since we lost the game, I'm thinking, the same money he was giving me, I have to give to him. I go home, Benny is there, so I'm saying, don't worry about it, man. I got your money upstairs. So I was prepared to give him $40,000. It's like, nah, it's bigger than that. Like, what the hell you talking about? You scared? Ain't nobody just gonna lose and everybody be still alive. He left town that night. I didn't talk to nobody. My best friend, my mother, I didn't tell nobody.
In Las Vegas, agents from the Nevada Gaming Control Board are closing in. After weeks of forensic auditing of the sports book records, they uncover evidence of unusually high betting on the March 5th game and several more ASU games before that.
If you're taking advantage of the knowledge of the outcome of an event to then defraud a casino or a sports book, then you're guilty of fraud.
3 months later, Smith wins Athlete of the Year. As for the scam, rumors of the point shaving persist, but nothing comes of it, and Smith thinks it's behind him.
I thought I was gonna beat it.
Then, in June 1994, Smith's big moment arrives, the NBA draft. He can finally cash in on his talents, legally. But now, the whispers of throwing a game are no longer whispers, and the NBA doesn't want to play with Smith.
I thought I was untouchable, but that wasn't reality.
All Pac-10 team captain, highest scorer in ASU history, number 44 Steven Smith, goes undrafted. Smith spends the next 3 years playing minor league ball, everywhere from Paris, France to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, trying to rebuild his reputation. It takes years, but in 1997, the Dallas Mavericks come calling. Smith's not the only one whose luck has changed. In Las Vegas, after years of investigating, the Nevada Gaming Control Board and the FBI crack the point shaving case.
They managed to work back through people that they had indicted, people that had given them information, to one of the players on the ASU team.
I didn't think it would blow up like it did, and it blew up huge.
Who is it? Step back, please.
And the feds came to me, and I found out the numbers, and it was over $1.3 million lost on the game. That was scary.
Smith was in the NBA at the time that he was indicted. So it cost him his professional basketball career.
In November 1999, Smith goes before a judge and gets a year in prison and a new number.
Going from Stevick Smith to 010444748, that was my federal prison number. I mean, if that ain't real, I don't know what the hell is real.
Smith is released from prison in 2000.
Won the European Cup. They don't never talk about that. They don't never talk about the fact that I had a 3.5 GPA, that I was the male student athlete of the year I beat our field mixer, who's now one of the top golfers in the world. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the records I still have right to this day, not only in the Pac-10, but at Arizona State. You just only hear Stephen Smith, the one who point shaved. That's just something I got to live with for the rest of my life, you know?
There are two kinds of insiders when it comes to cheating Vegas. Those who are cheaters and those who are watching cheaters.
A cheat when he comes into a casino is very different than a tourist. He's looking for something. He's observing the dealers. He's watching what's happening. He doesn't see the lights. He doesn't see the flashing signs. He sees what we're doing and the money he's going to take from us.
And here are 7 of the most common cheats demonstrated in detail by our own insiders. These scams are what the surveillance professionals are looking for every day.
Of all the ways there are to mark playing cards in play, the simplest thing is to bend the playing cards. I'm going to show you an example of how the bad guys bend cards in play in a casino. You notice a high card and a low card, and simply in the action of either hitting or asking for a card or tucking the cards under the money, I just bent the playing cards. You'll notice that one corner does not touch the surface of the table. That identifies it to the cheater as a high card. You notice that this corner does touch the table. That means it's a low card. Now I can tell high cards from low cards in future rounds of play.
Then there's the trick insiders call banging the paints.
They call face cards paints because there's more ink on the card. It looks as though I'm just placing a bet, when in fact, I'm marking that little card with my knuckle. And in the simple act of giving this chip to the dealer as a tip, I mark the playing card. Notice as I touch that card and say, "Here, dealer, this is for you," I tap the face of the face card with the chip, and I put a mark on the back of the playing card that can be seen and identified in future rounds of play. If I see a bump on the back of a card, I know it's a high card. I would therefore know that anything without a bump is a low card. It helps me win by knowing whether I should hit if it's a small card or stand if it's a big card.
But card games aren't the only ones surveillance officers have to scrutinize. Cheats can also tamper with dice games, like craps.
This is an old school scam that was used in cheating at craps called dice switching. In this example, I brought my own dice from home. This is going to be signified by the red color dice, and the house dice will be the green color. These dice do not have any 1, 2, 3s on them. They only have 4, 5s, and 6s. The eye can't tell because when you put a die on the table, everybody can only see 3 different sides at one time. I'm looking at a 4, 5, 6. You're looking at a 4, 5, 6. The dealer is looking at a 4, 5, 6. The switch takes place when the casino dice is passed to the cheater. He would pick up the dice like this, and then the crooked dice are dropped to the table at the exact same time the casino dice are picked up into the hand, and then the crooked dice are thrown down the layout. So these dice can only roll the numbers 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and cannot lose. Watch. 10, 12. That was a great one. I would have won a lot of money on that roll. 11. That was a good one. So you can see these dice are very dangerous.
But not all dice cheats rely on bogus dice. Some rely on good old-fashioned sleight of hand.
One of the most common methods of cheating at craps is known as a slide shot. This is where the cheater doesn't throw the die, it's being slid. In this case, I just want to slide a 6. And then my partner or myself, we bet big on the field. The field means if a 9, 10, 11, or 12 roll, I win. Well, it would guarantee me a 6 on one die. The only numbers that could hurt me here are the 1 and the 2. Any other number I win. And if a 6 rolls, I win triple. So when I pick up these dice, my thumb flips over the die and I get them in this position. When the dice are thrown, the back die is thrown legitimately, but that 6 isn't being thrown it's being whipped out of the hand. This whipping action gives the illusion that the dice is being thrown, when in reality it's being spun. So if I take that 6, when I throw it, that 6 isn't being thrown, it's being slid along the layout. This is definitely one of the better ways to take off a crap game, for the simple reason is you're using the casino's own equipment against itself. You're not bringing in anything from the outside.
Hand mucking is the art of switching cards in play. I'm going to show you how that switch might happen in the game of blackjack. In order to switch cards, you have to have one of the casino's cards, so you steal the card in advance or corrupt someone to get you one of the cards. And in this case, I have one of the casino's aces. I add the ace to the game, steal the 6 away, and now, voila, I have the blackjack. And if I want to clean up, then I go to the sleeve.
This next game is going to require a little teamwork. What just happened right now is me and Jason both have bets down on the pass line. As soon as I know that bet is going to win, Jason's going to take over.
And I'm going to distract the dealer by asking a simple question at the right moment. Dealer, can I get change for 200, please? Thank you.
At the exact same time when the dealer was distracted, I reached down and added money to my bet. And instead of winning 200, now I win 700. What you're going to see right now is a different form of pass posting. What you've seen before was me pressing my bet. I had a bet and I added more called pressing. Pass posting means I'm actually going to make a bet after the dice have been rolled. I have one chip palmed in my hand. That's the chip I'm going to pass post, and that's the chip that's invisible to the dealer. So the moment I see a field 1, the chip that I hold in my hand is the one I'm going to ask for change. So as this chip comes down, at the exact same time that's getting slapped, that's getting dropped, guaranteeing myself a sure winner.
But having an inside edge is not always enough in Vegas. Because here, casinos know their enemies and will stop at nothing to shut them down.
The cheats will always try. I'm always going to have a job. And my main role in life here is to protect the assets. And by assets, I don't just mean the money that's sitting on the tables. I'm talking about the guests and the employees. So every day we could come to work and our focus is let's protect this casino.
In Las Vegas, more than 35 million people try to strike it rich every year. Most leave empty-handed, or worse. But cheats in Vegas are always looking for new ways to beat the system, and Vegas security is just as committed to stopping them.
Cheaters cheat because basically they have the feeling that I am special because I can do this. They'll say, there's an opportunity for me to make money. They'll go home and they'll practice it, come in and beat us.
But every time the cheaters think they have the system beat, the system gets better. These are the crimes that push Vegas to up their game. These are the game changers. Cheaters have been around since gambling began in the United States. In the Old West, you had to see the cheat to catch it, and justice was swift. Today, thousands of cameras police every moment of every game. That means cheaters have to be slicker than ever.
The technology just seems to be never ending, and the biggest challenge for us is to keep up with that technology.
It's a high-tech game of cat and mouse. But every once in a while, a criminal comes along who's able to fly completely under the radar, and in the process, changes the game forever.
These men and women would justify, stealing in all sorts of ways. The casino industry is dishonest or some other nonsense, and they would talk themselves into being okay with stealing.
Keeping track of the city's most notorious cheats is the job of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Their version of the FBI's most wanted list, called the Black Book, was created in 1960.
Had 6 people that were originally put in it, and they were all organized crime figures. And these people were not allowed to enter any casino.
But as the old mobsters died off, a new generation of tech-savvy cheats took over, and they were added to the list.
You have to be a threat to the casino industry, and there's about 37 or 38 in the black book right now.
Most are career criminals who cheated the casinos for years before being caught.
Whenever you make an arrest on someone from a law enforcement standpoint, it's a success. So that's kind of how I view putting someone in the black book.
Once you're in the book, you have the right to dispute it, but no one has ever won their way or litigated their way out of it. The only way you get out of the black book is to die. Then they take you out.
One of the most notorious cheats to ever make the book targets the city's hardware.
It is an ongoing war in the industry between the manufacturers on the one side and the cheats on the other.
Enter the city's biggest moneymakers. In Vegas, there are 120,000 working slot machines, one for every 5 residents. They're called one-armed bandits because they're responsible for more than 75% of casino profits. And with all that money sitting on the casino floor, slots are, and always have been, glittering beacons for cheats looking for a quick payout. From the earliest days, cheats have tried fooling the machines with slugs or coins attached to strings that could then be pulled back out. But as the machines became more sophisticated, so did the cheats. One of the most successful slot cheats of all time is a former TV repairman named Tommy Carmichael. For more than 2 decades, Carmichael designed tools that enabled him and other cheats to scam millions from slot machines. And every Vegas slot machine you see today was engineered with Tommy Carmichael in mind.
The devices that Tommy Carmichael could create would allow a very surreptitious entry of a machine and a very surreptitious breaching of the security features of a machine that were successful. And it worked in a large population of the makes and models of slot machines out at that time.
This is 62-year-old Carmichael. He agreed to sit down for this exclusive interview to reveal how he took Vegas for a ride.
It was like a giant ATM. Just wherever you wanted to go for vacation, you went to withdraw also.
The story begins in Carmichael's TV repair shop.
A friend of his dropped by with what he told him was a cheating device to cheat slot machines, and it was called a top and bottom joint.
Here's how the top and bottom joint works. In 1980, slots had come a long way from the earliest machines. Originally, slotted discs were attached to the ends of 3 spinning reels inside. To hit a jackpot, all of the slots had to line up perfectly, and that's how slot machines got their name. But on the newer machines, levers are attached to the spinning reels. These levers have metal contacts on the ends, which rest against a fixed board that's also covered with contacts. The contacts are wired to a circuit board, and when a jackpot is won, a circuit completes and turns on the motor of the hopper, which dispenses the money. The cheating device brought into Carmichael's shop that day hot wires the hopper's motor, triggering a payout. This device, the top and bottom joint, comes in 2 parts. The bottom tool is made from a short piece of guitar string.
There was a small wire that went in the bottom left corner of the machine, and it went up against a circuit board that was in there.
The wire draws the current from the circuit board and sends a low wattage of electricity running through the slot machine. Then the top tool, a piece of metal shaped like the number 9, is inserted into the coin slot. This completes an electrical circuit powerful enough to activate the hopper that dispenses money, and the coins come flooding out. Carmichael's friend is making money hand over fist in Vegas, while Carmichael is barely scraping by in Tulsa. He wants in on the action. So he flies to Nevada to try his luck with his friend's device. In 1980, security cameras aren't around to capture his activities. In fact, they won't be installed throughout casinos for more than 9 years. Carmichael sits down at a slot machine, inserts the top and bottom joint, and suddenly, Tommy Carmichael has a new career: cheating Vegas. Carmichael begins commuting to Sin City to run his scam.
The machines held about $75 back then. On a good day, by working all day long, you might make $2,000 a day, which was good money.
Carmichael's daily take is the equivalent of more than $5,000 today.
I'd stay out there and let somebody else run the shop. I'd be out there a couple of months at a time, but when I'd come back, it seemed like the shop never made any money. So I finally just shut the shop down completely and moved out there and started from that point, actually.
Carmichael begins living large. He makes and buys new friends.
You know, you got Vegas, and it's designed to separate you from your money, which it's very good at. So even though you're making larger money, you're also spending larger money. We'd go to the show. We had some pretty good dinners. For me, $1,500, $1,800 for a meal, pretty good for 4 or 5 people.
He found a way to make money faster, and he didn't mind and probably enjoyed being a criminal. And so he decided it was worth the risk.
Beating the machines were never the problem. It was the people around you. Without drawing attention, you need to get this money out of the machine without them noticing it or hearing it or appearing that you're doing anything. That was the more complicated part of the whole thing.
To avoid suspicion, Carmichael never stays in one place too long. For 5 years, he hits casinos all over Vegas. Then, in 1985, the casinos catch some crooks using the top and bottom device. In response, slot machine manufacturers develop a way to recognize the surge of electricity the device creates.
They were putting slow-blow fuses in machines, and if you tried to cheat it with the wire in, it would blow this fuse and it would shut down.
Soon, these upgraded slots are everywhere. And for Carmichael, it looks like the end for his easy money.
I was still making $200, $300, $400 a day if you were lucky, because everything was shrinking down to nothing.
To continue cheating, he has to find the old machines to prey on.
He would hit several slot machines in one casino at a time and empty them. And this brought suspicion on him.
On July 4th, 1985, Tommy Carmichael gets caught cheating while playing a slot machine near the Strip. Enforcement agents from the Nevada Gaming Control Board arrest him.
I had the tools on me. And when they searched me, they asked me, "What's this?" And I said, "Well, I believe you know." And that was pretty much it.
Carmichael is in serious trouble.
Cheating, especially using a device to cheat, is a felony, punishable by up to 6 years in prison for your first offense.
Carmichael is sentenced to 5 years. But while most people find their careers on hold during a prison stay, Tommy Carmichael uses it as a breeding ground for his next big scam.
Prison is a situation you pick your own friends. And there were slot players there, and so we all kind of hung out together.
One of these slot cheats is a man named Michael Balsamo. Balsamo has been in and out of prison since 1980.
Michael Balsamo was a career criminal. That was his life, that was his lifestyle. And he had pretty much dedicated himself to cheating the casino industry.
Carmichael and Balsamo realize they have a lot in common.
They were kind of a loose association in the sense that one helped the other out, and vice versa. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
And they started devising a plan of getting together when they got out of prison.
In 1987, Tommy Carmichael is the first to be released. His parole stipulated that he had to return to Tulsa and stay out of Vegas. Carmichael has no intention of complying. But since his TV business is long gone, he needs a cover. he makes a deal with a local contractor.
He had a construction site, and I was supposed to be a salesman for the construction site. So he was writing me a check, and I would turn it in as my salary. But I was living in Las Vegas. And every time I had to make an appearance from probation, I would actually fly from Vegas to Tulsa here and make my appearance, and then I'd get back on a plane, go back home to Vegas.
While he waits for Michael Balsamo to get out of jail, Carmichael cases out the casinos. Since his old tools no longer work, Carmichael needs a new one that will fool the latest generation of slot machines. He develops his boldest con yet, impersonating a casino owner.
He would go to the actual manufacturers, walk in, make himself sound like he was some sort of a person in the market to buy some new slot machines, and the salespeople would open up the doors, would take things apart, and show it to him. He would talk to engineers at trade shows. They'd show him the guts of the machine.
For Carmichael, two things are now clear. One, hot wiring the hopper will not be an option. And two, in order for him to even figure out how to beat this machine, he'll need to buy one.
The Nevada regulatory system allows for the sales of slot machines. There are stores where you can go buy a slot machine. Anybody can buy a slot machine.
Problem is, the machine costs $1,000 and Carmichael is broke. And so is Michael Balsamo, who also just got paroled. They decide to raise the cash together by doing what they know. They travel all over Nevada, looking for the last of the old machines that they can still cheat.
We actually went and played the top and bottom joint, the old tool that we history on. We actually played nickels in order to get enough money to buy a new machine.
Once he has it, Carmichael gets to work.
Tommy Carmichael had the ability to take apart a slot machine, interrogate its security features, and develop techniques to sidestep them.
Carmichael soon realizes that the new machine has a weak point, the counter that regulates the amount of coins that will be paid out. He discovers that the counter can be overrun by tripping a tiny micro switch deep in the machine. With the counter out of commission, the machine just keeps spitting out money. But Carmichael must create a tool that can access this switch. No easy feat.
It took about 6 months to really come up with something really good on it. And it was called a slider. It was made out of a concrete trowel. And it was about 11.5 inches long. And it was thin metal. It went through an air hole in the machine.
Once inside, the slider has to slip underneath a secondary security door, then turn 10 degrees to engage the micro switch. But if Carmichael builds the tool with a fixed curve, it will get hung up on the hundreds of wires inside before ever reaching the door. This is a problem. But Carmichael has a stroke of inspiration. He threads piano wire through the nose of the tool so it can be adjusted after it passes beneath the door. It works.
And it would slide into the micro switch and stop the count whenever. So the machine was always paying you, but it never knew how much it was paying you because you could actually keep it from counting.
With the slider, Carmichael and Balsamo are back in business. They split up. Balsamo takes a slider and begins hitting casinos all over the country. Carmichael stays to work Vegas.
That slider was making about $1,000 an hour because that's the speed that the machine would spit quarters out.
With the new device, Carmichael is making money 10 times faster than he ever has before. And for the next 2 years, he enjoys all the spoils of his craft. But then, in 1989, the casinos find a new tool as well. Advancements in security camera technology mean that cameras can now be installed anywhere. And in Vegas, this means everywhere. Casinos are now able to closely monitor all aspects of gaming, including slot machines. For Carmichael and Balsamo, avoiding the cameras becomes the #1 priority.
They would case an establishment. They would look for obstructions with cameras because the marketing department, they would hang signs. They would make the place beautiful. They would put up flowers. Well, all of a sudden, you know, some of the best cameras for a particular area were masked. Well, the Tommy Carmichaels of the world would come into a casino, and that's what they were looking for.
Carmichael gets away with it for a year. But then, in 1990, surveillance officers notice him acting suspiciously at a machine. They call in agents from the Nevada Gaming Control Board who follow Carmichael home and stake out his apartment building.
They were sitting in the parking lot and was going to try to catch me in the casino.
But Carmichael gets a lucky break.
And for some reason, that night, they pulled off me to go do something else. And when they came back the next day, I was gone. I had moved into a house, and of course, we were getting everything under different names and everything. So when they came back, I had disappeared on them.
It's a close call. Carmichael will have to be more careful in the future. Months later, casinos unveil the latest slots designed to protect the money counter. Overnight, Carmichael's slider becomes obsolete. In the game of cheats versus casinos, the casinos are back on top. But once again, Carmichael isn't willing to give up the fight.
I was asked one time, did I ever feel guilty about taking the money from the casinos? And I have actually asked myself, I said, you know, you try to reason these things out, and I'm thinking, well, honestly, do I? And I felt, no, I don't. The gaming industry is so misleading with cards or live type gaming. It's happening in front of you, and you got some kind of fair chance. When it comes to slots, you have no chance.
In 1990, Carmichael is ready to cheat again, but there's a problem. His cheating device is useless. The slot's mechanical counters have been replaced by state-of-the-art optic sensors.
This optic was a little light beam, and what it did, it had a transmitter, and it would transmit a beam across to the receiver, and the coin would pass through this light, and that was how it would count the money.
Once the machine has counted the allotted payout, it stops the flow of coins.
So I came up with a tool that actually went up in there with a little light on it and supplied a beam of light to the receiver so that when the coin passed, the machine never knew it.
As long as the light was lit, the machine was not counting coins as they came out of the machine. So they got a lot of coins that they weren't entitled to.
Carmichael dubs his new cheating device the Light Wand. And with it, the game has changed again, this time in his favor. Carmichael also realizes that he can make more money outside the casino by selling light wands. His customers, fellow cheats and hustlers.
To make one probably cost you $2 or $3. He would sell them for $10,000 or $12,000. Quite a markup.
With the illicit sales of light wands, plus his own slot cheating, Carmichael is making more money than ever before.
Oh, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was nothing but Disneyland, more or less. It was just a great big party most of the time.
Tommy Carmichael's operation was a huge threat to the casino industry because he had so many cheaters involved using devices that he had created. They were stealing thousands and thousands of dollars a day.
But Carmichael doesn't restrict himself to just cheating Vegas. He and his fellow scammers take the light wands on the road.
It went all over the United States. And we'd drive up to Reno just for something to do, or Lake Tahoe, or Atlantic City, or Biloxi.
He hung out with a drug crowd. They partied a lot. Remember, at their core, they're all con men, so it's not like they were buddy-buddy. Like, you know, it wasn't like they were a SEAL team where everybody trusted everybody. They were waiting for the knife in the back.
But with so many people using Carmichael's light wands, there is more room for error. Light wands get stuck in machines and abandoned, only to be found by casino workers who hand them over to the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
Here's the actual device. The black shrink tubing and black electrical tape are on there because we had to repair the device. It had become broken. Just now Julie's going to demonstrate how it's inserted through the coin return and positioned properly
inside the game. But notice that the credit meter remains at 6 credits. Go ahead and cash out.
Gaming agents create a video to show slot machine manufacturers how their machines have been compromised.
So out of the 6 credits that the game thinks it paid out, these are the quarters that actually came out of the hopper. Obviously, significantly more than 6.
When they realized what was happening, the slot machine industry introduced a delay. So if you heard a payout where the coins are following, about every 6 or 7 seconds, there would be a slight delay. That delay was to outsmart the light beam. And so the light beam would stay on, and the delay would say, whoops, there should be no light. So the machine would shut down.
The good guys are ahead again, but not for long. Carmichael modifies the light wand so the cheater can quickly turn off the device during the lag time.
You just had an off and on switch. It was probably the most simple electrical circuit there is.
Problem solved. It's back to business as usual. But then in 1996, alert surveillance officers finally catch Carmichael in the act.
They noticed the money was coming out and the coin count was stopped of the machine. And here we go again. Here comes the security.
Carmichael responds quickly. He pulls the light wand from the machine.
And I sling the tool, and the tool goes clear across the casino. Well, the security all go over there, and they're looking all over the place for this tool. Can't find the tool. I told them, I said, there is no tool.
But eventually, the light wand is found. It looks like Carmichael's luck has finally run out. Or has it?
But they didn't have a case because where did that tool come from? I mean, is it mine or is it somebody else's they already had? Or I had a real good attorney.
The prosecutor didn't feel there was sufficient evidence. The surveillance cameras were not on the machines enough to show him actually using the device in the machine.
And authorities can't bust him on being in Las Vegas illegally, since his parole expired 4 years earlier.
So they dropped the charges against him.
Carmichael has eluded justice, but once again, he's high on the radar at the Nevada Gaming Control Board. And his next misstep could easily be his last. Carmichael keeps his operation undercover. Then, in 1999, prison buddy Michael Balsamo re-enters the picture. He had done well for himself with Carmichael's cheating devices in the past, and he's eager to take advantage of Carmichael's latest technology.
I think Tommy Carmichael would tell you that his fatal mistake was involving Michael Balsamo in his cheating group, because Balsamo was kind of out of control and didn't really care what he did or how he did it.
Balsamo has big plans. Armed with the light wand, he takes off for fresh casino territory throughout the U.S. 3 months later, Balsamo's arrested, and the light wand is confiscated and turned over to the FBI. An investigation is launched. When agents pull Balsamo's phone records, a number from Las Vegas keeps showing up: Tommy Carmichael's. The Nevada Gaming Control Board teams with FBI agents to tap Carmichael's phone.
Yeah, I've got some incredible news.
His days of cheating Vegas are coming to an end. But instead of pouncing right away, agents listen.
Goes in through the coin slot.
Carmichael, who has no idea authorities are onto him, is hard at work on a new cheating device. Because once again, slot machine manufacturers have caught up to his game-changing devices. They've just introduced machines called Ticket In, Ticket Out.
The ticket in, ticket out is when you win money. Instead of winning money, you get a ticket. And then you go and cash the ticket in.
Carmichael's light wand is useless because the new slots have no coin release to manipulate. So he buys a Ticket In, Ticket Out machine. Like the older slots, the machine still accepts bills and coins. So Carmichael devises a tool to trick the slot machine. He calls it the tongue.
It was like a tongue depressor, and it actually went in where the coins went in. And what I was doing is I was taking over the coin acceptor with this device.
Carmichael's tool takes advantage of a flaw in the design of the machine's optical counting system. After a coin is put in, it falls straight down past a series of 3 lights. But Carmichael discovers he can trick the counter by moving his tool back and forth in front of the middle light.
By blinking the center light, even if the other 2 were off, it wouldn't matter. It would think that coins were going through that fast, stuck together.
In less than a second, Carmichael's tongue tool triggers the machine into giving him hundreds of dollars worth of playing credits.
It's the same as sticking money in. And now you cash it out, it's their problem.
It's a new device, and I've just created...
Carmichael asks several of his fellow cheaters to test the device and help him work out the kinks.
It's called the tongue.
We would follow them to these locations and watch them do it and steal money. It's a very backed-off surveillance package, but we were doing it for a reason. We were building a bigger case. The tipping point, the reason that we dropped the hammer on them is that they had perfected and successfully tested a 25-cent coin-in device. And they were upgrading the thing to a $5 coin-in device. A $5 machine can lose lots and lots of money in a very short period of time. It had the potential for millions of dollars worth of losses.
We were going to shoot it, making a couple $1 million apiece, and then just retire it.
This one works completely different. Everything else went up.
Carmichael still has no idea the feds are onto him. He is moving fast, so now the FBI has to act. When Carmichael flies to Atlantic City to score some easy cash, agents are waiting for him. He is caught red-handed with his tools and arrested. In 2000, the cheater who changed the security game by defeating every bit of technology he encountered pleads guilty to running an illegal gambling enterprise. Always looking for a good angle, Carmichael gets a lighter sentence by agreeing to show authorities how all his tools work.
It was fun. I mean, 20 years, it was 20 years of just go till the wheels fall off, you know?
But there are still dozens of other cheaters out there using the tools Carmichael created. And one of the boldest is Michael Balsamo, who has now taught his entire family to steal.
Michael Balsamo was about Michael Balsamo, and he got a lot of people into hot water.
In Las Vegas, Balsamo's wife, Stephanie, and his mother-in-law, Lavana, soon mastered the art of slot cheating. They use the light wand, preying on older casinos that haven't upgraded to the ticket-in machines yet. Surveillance footage shows the family in action.
Stephanie was the one who was primarily doing the work. She was the one who was stealing, inserting the cheating device, collecting the money. The role of her mother was to sit next to her and have a very large purse put in a strategic position where it was a blocking agent so that the cameras could not see exactly what was going on. But all of it was orchestrated to draw attention away from the activity that they were doing, which was cheating.
Stephanie Balsamo is extremely adept at using the light wand.
It is literally less than a second maneuver to get it from her purse out. You just see her hand go in her purse, typically come out of her purse and go into the hopper. If you watch it in real time, you will never see it. She is that good and that fast.
When the video is slowed down, you can barely make out the edge of the light wand's handle.
The way it's designed, it fits in the palm of her hand and it follows the curve of her finger so that you don't see it.
For at least a year, the Balsamo family wins the battle of cheats versus casinos. But the game is far from over. On April 28, 2006, Balsamo's wife Stephanie and her mother draw the suspicions of security officers all over southern Nevada.
In less than an hour, they had hit 3 separate casinos 10 miles apart and they had never, ever lost. At least Stephanie never did. If she sat down at a machine, she walked away with buckets of coins.
After reviewing hours of surveillance video, gaming officials finally have enough evidence to bust them. On June 5, 2006, Michael Balsamo, his wife Stephanie, and his mother-in-law Lavana are arrested and charged with several counts of manufacturing and possessing a cheating device. In 2008, they all go to trial. Balsamo's mother-in-law is convicted but given probation. Balsamo's wife, Stephanie, is convicted and sentenced to between 16 and 32 years in prison. As for Michael Balsamo, he never made it to trial. While out on bail, he disappears.
Michael Balsamo fled to Argentina, and we received reports from his family members that he passed away. There is some doubt that he, in fact, has died because he is such a scam artist. And so to this day, he still is listed as being alive.
In Vegas, at least, Balsamo is out of the picture. And Carmichael is back in Oklahoma, banned from ever entering a casino in Nevada again. As for slots, they continue to evolve to become more secure.
The slot machines are computerized today. They're computers. And so to cheat a slot machine this day and age, you pretty much have to be a computer expert, a hacker.
And without question, there is someone like Tommy Carmichael trying to find a way to beat them. Tommy Carmichael and Michael Balsamo spent the better part of 2 decades cheating Vegas. There's no way to know for sure exactly how much they stole, but experts believe it was in the millions. And in an ironic twist of fate, Tommy Carmichael, the slot cheat mastermind who is now banished to Tulsa, still isn't done with Vegas. He has one more hit. Carmichael develops and patents an anti-cheating device, which he tries to market to the casinos.
It had been approved by gaming, and it had all the licensing and everything done to it. But as soon as they found out that I was the inventor of it, they said, nah.
The gaming industry, which had lost millions thanks to Carmichael and his inventions, wants nothing more to do with him. It is game over.
Tommy Carmichael is a very bright person who, had he used his intelligence for good, probably would have been a much richer man than he is today.
But it's not just cheaters with technical know-how that casinos have to look out for. Other criminals change the game by using sheer force. The heart of every casino is the cage, a highly secure area where money is counted and chips and tokens can be exchanged for cash.
The cage, this is run a lot like a bank, but honestly, this is more secure than any bank. This is where all the money is. So we take our security here more seriously than any other place.
For years, cages were considered rock-solid fortresses, even though a few unarmed casino guards, a couple of cameras, and a dark reputation were their only protection.
It was perceived that organized crime had a lot of influence in Las Vegas and that they were owners or part owners of all the casinos. Popular consensus was that anybody who robbed a casino would end up dead the next day, buried out in the desert someplace.
But in the 1990s, corporations started building and buying casinos. Cages still had millions on hand, but security hadn't changed. And without the mythic layer of mob protection, the once impenetrable fortress became vulnerable. No one knew it, but a violent outside force was about to change the game of cage security forever. The Aladdin Casino. Tourists work the slots. Players huddle around the gaming tables. At 9 p.m., black and white surveillance cameras capture a suspicious group entering the casino.
They've got masks on, they've got guns, they start yelling, hitting people, knocking people down.
They make their way to the cage. The bandits are small enough to dive under the 15-inch clearance below the cage bars.
They open up all the drawers, grab all the money they could, as quick as they could.
As they ransack the cage, casino staff offer no resistance.
They're not supposed to fight these guys. Just let them take it, back off. No amount of money is worth your life.
The thugs inside the cage leap out and race for the door. In less than 2 minutes, the robbers bag 47 grand in cash.
This was the first time anything like this had happened. A flat-out takeover of the casino cage area.
Casino cameras see it all, but after review of the grainy black and white footage, they still don't know the identities of the masked bandits.
They could see enough skin color under their masks to know they were black, but nobody was going to be able to identify them. We didn't have any real leads to go on. There's really no physical evidence that would lead us to anybody. 2 days later, LAPD was serving 28 search warrants related to a gang homicide. The police rolled up at one of these locations, and a bag comes flying out, lands practically at their feet. They look in the bag, and there's a bunch of Aladdin casino money wrappers in there. Of course, that's our first clue that the guys who robbed the casino had a connection to LA.
But no one is sure exactly what the connection is. The LAPD immediately calls Las Vegas police, and since the investigation has crossed state lines, the FBI gets involved. All three agencies focus attention on a potential LA gang connection, but nothing comes of it, and the investigation goes cold. 2 months later, the Flamingo, another casino with easy access to the cage, is hit.
4 guys come running in, guns out, all masked up, vault the counter, grab the money. They all leave, get in a stolen van, take off. Took less than 2 minutes, and they were out of there with $150,000.
Once again, the robbers leave behind no clues, little evidence, and no suspects. Desperate to avoid a mass exodus of customers, Vegas increases camera coverage and adds security on casino floors.
The reason that everybody was so concerned about this robbery series was that they didn't want it to affect tourism. They didn't want anybody not to feel safe in a hotel in Las Vegas. And that's what this gang was making people feel unsafe. They were unsafe. Nobody wants to go to a hotel that, looks like you're in Baghdad.
But there's no stopping the bandits. 2 days later, they hit Harrah's. Only this time, they amp up the attack.
4 young men come running in. They pistol whip a lady. They hit another guy in the head. 2 of them vault the counter. They grab another guy by the hair, hold a gun to his head, while the 2 behind the counter rifle the drawers. Jump back over the counter. They all run outside with a little over $97,000. They crash through a gate, and they go into the Harrah's parking garage, where they switch to another vehicle. Police officer sees this van coming out with its lights off, 3 in the morning. He starts following it. The van takes off, the chase is on. They get the helicopter up, and squad cars converge, and there's a 20-minute high-speed chase through Vegas. The subjects ram a police car that's at a roadblock, lose control, hit a fire hydrant, crash into a telephone pole, and everybody's scattered.
Police canine units pursue on foot. 30 harrowing minutes later, they bust all 4 thieves, plus the getaway driver. Unmasked, authorities discover that the terrifying casino cage attackers are just teenagers from Los Angeles gangs, hoping to build up their street credibility.
The gangs will use kids for a lot of stuff. They'll use them as lookouts, they'll use them as couriers, they'll use them to pass messages, sometimes make deliveries or carry money, because they know that even if they get caught, the kid will have no incentive to talk because he won't be looking at that much time. He's a juvenile. Plus, the younger they were, the dumber they were to put themselves at this kind of risk.
That means one thing to authorities.
We didn't have the guys who had been setting this up and was responsible for robbery after robbery. So that's what we were trying to uncover.
The cops put the squeeze on the attack crew, interrogating them for hours in search of the ringleaders. But whoever is running this dangerous scam has been careful. The teenagers don't even know the names of the guys they're working for. A year goes by.
And it took so long, the time kind of worked in our favor because these gang members, they were continually getting in trouble with the law. And when they would get jammed up bad enough, they'd be looking for a way to get out. They'd be thinking, well, I know a little bit about this casino robbery. So we got a lot of bits of information from a lot of people, and we put the whole thing together.
Authorities uncover not one, but two ringleaders behind the violent cage raids. Melvin Foster and Chet Govan are unlikely partners from rival Los Angeles gangs.
Loyalty to the gang really goes out the window when it comes to making money.
Melvin Foster was a member of the Los Angeles Bloods gang. He had gotten the idea for the robberies after he traveled to Vegas and recognized a serious flaw in casino cages.
Melvin Foster was well aware that most of the casinos didn't have bars and stuff. They looked more like a bank counter, but there was a lot more money behind the counter than you would find at the typical bank.
Foster had mapped out a plan. He started by choosing casinos with cages close to exits and with the fewest cameras and security guards. Foster was ready, but he wanted to increase his odds of success. For that, he needed a partner, someone street smart, someone like him. But who could he trust? Family. He turned to his cousin, Dion Chappelle. Chappelle suggested a partnership with her boyfriend from the rival Crips gang. His name was Chet Govan, who went by the street name Short Dog. In 1994 Los Angeles, on a normal day, these two gang members would kill each other before they would ever talk.
Guys are supposed to be rivals, supposed to be trying to tear each other's head off, but next thing you know, they're involved in that kind of activity together.
Foster had the mind, and Govan had the mettle. They needed each other, even if no one could understand the partnership on the street. Foster and Govan used young gang members from LA's toughest neighborhoods to storm the Vegas casino cages unchallenged.
Finding young men in the streets that were willing to get involved, especially if they thought they could make a quick buck, it was really easy because they know they're willing to go out and do something crazy.
After the heist, the gang used two escape cars. The first was for the getaway from the casino. The second car was waiting in a parking garage. Then, they switched into that car with the money and headed to Los Angeles. The masterminds waited nearby.
Chet Govan and Melvin Foster wouldn't be anywhere near the casino during the robbery.
When they got word the heist was pulled off, Govan and Foster made their way back to South Central Los Angeles in their own car.
This way they would never be connected with either the robbers, the physical evidence from the robbery, or even the money.
Incredibly, Foster and Govan didn't give a dime to the brazen young gang members who pulled off the heists.
The guys they're working for are not planning on sharing it with them. So they'll use them up until they can't use them anymore. You know, they move on to the next youngster that's willing to do something stupid for them.
Once Foster and Govan are arrested, the two rivals quickly flip on each other. The authorities now have enough to put them away. Foster gets 18.5 years in prison. Govan is sentenced to 22.
The 5 men who we had caught after Harrah's robbery, they all pled, and they got between 10 and 18 years apiece.
For Las Vegas, the robberies were game changers when it comes to cages. In today's modern casino, the cages are deliberately set in the back, far from exits, making a fast getaway virtually impossible. They are also being watched from every angle.
I have more cameras per square foot in this area than anywhere in the casino. I've got 60 cameras in this small area. I have cameras embedded in the bars. But in addition to that, we're more vigilant in front of this cage than we ever were before. We have security that is staged here 24/7, and not just one officer, several.
The cage interior has also been revamped, making the money less accessible.
Because those individuals were able to slide right into the cage, we had to look at that and say, that really didn't work, did it? It was a very glaring weakness that nobody had really thought of. But when it was demonstrated to us, at that point, all the bars came down lower so that somebody cannot do that anymore.
The lowered bars are only the first new layer of protection.
The initial door you walk in to get into the cage leads you into the chip bank area, where they're going to be conducting transactions, taking chips to the table, bringing chips back that have been redeemed from a game.
Today, the cage is no longer an open area. It's a labyrinth of multiple rooms.
Beyond that door, that's going to have a cage going into the main cage, but then next to that is going to be another door. So you go in one door, that door is going to close and lock behind you. Both doors can't be open at the same time. And then to get actual entry to the cage, you have to go through another door. And then usually behind that, we're gonna have our count areas. So you're gonna be going through 3 to 4 doors to get to the count area where we're actually counting the money.
Still, in spite of all the new defenses the casinos put in place, there will always be another game changer who will come up with ways to beat the system. The only thing everyone in Vegas can bank on is that the battle against cheats will never end. Vegas is a world built on fantasy. But there's a dark reality just beneath the surface, where good and bad guys battle every day.
It's cat and mouse, just what we're doing all the time.
Usually, the good guys win, but there are cheaters who are so accomplished at what they do, they get away with millions. These are their exclusive stories, told by the guys who took Vegas for a ride and landed themselves into the Cheater Hall of Fame. On gaming tables in Las Vegas casinos, there are colored chips of all denominations. Only a handful of companies make them, and manufacturing processes are kept top secret. So when 2 devious cheats successfully counterfeited chips, it catapulted them right into the Cheater Hall of Fame.
Chips are cash in casinos and would be similar to dollar bills or $20 bills.
Henderson, Nevada, just 13 miles from Las Vegas. Agents from the Gaming Control Board bust a counterfeiting ring operating out of a garage.
The bust itself was a first of its kind, not just in Las Vegas, but gaming control agents say the first of its kind in the country. They'd never really seen an operation like this before.
In a makeshift workshop, agents find chips that are in the process of being converted from low denominations to high denominations.
These are all 4-queen $100 inserts. That is what sticks in the middle of a $1 chip with a little paint, and you've got a $100 chip. Now you have $1 investment and a $99 profit.
I mean, it literally took some paint, some glitter, and a blow dryer, and a good idea.
Behind the scam is an unlikely pair, 2 former construction workers. The mastermind is 40-year-old Eric Morikawa. In an exclusive interview, Morikawa reveals how he created chips that looked so real, they fooled the experts.
It wasn't that easy, but once it came to us and we figured out a way, it came fast.
The story begins in the late 1990s. Vegas construction is booming. New casinos are going up all over town, and older casinos renovate extensively to stay competitive. In 2000, small-time contractor Eric Morikawa of Southern California moves to Las Vegas to find work. Soon, Morikawa has more work than he can handle. He hires additional help, including 20-year-old Jeremy Lewis.
Jeremy I met at a bar shooting pool, and he was out of work, and I gave him a job.
But Morikawa's new employee has a checkered past.
Jeremy Lewis was the known bad guy. He had some drug and forgery warrants outstanding in California, and he had also had multiple arrests here in the Las Vegas area.
Still, Jeremy's a good worker. For a few years, business is good. Then, in 2004, the economy crashes.
The construction industry took a dive, and work wasn't really there anymore. We were all in the same situation. The money started to deplete, and we needed to take care of our families.
Morikawa and his crew start doing jobs farther and farther away. But on one of their return trips, Morikawa spots something on the side of the road that gets him thinking.
I saw a chip on the billboard and asked them, how hard would it be to make the chip? And we all agreed it wouldn't be that difficult.
In that moment, Morikawa and his crew decide to do what no one else has successfully done: counterfeit the currency of Vegas, casino chips.
We went up to Vegas, and we would get the chip from the table. We took it back to my garage, and we broke it down. We broke it in half, tried to see what was contained inside the chip.
Casino chips are made out of clay, sand, and other earthen metals that are heated to extreme temperatures and pressed into shape. Morikawa and the crew start trying to replicate them.
We were trying to make our own chips from scratch, from different clays, injecting metals, and trying to get it that weight. It was hard. It was really hard.
In order to pass, the fake chips must have the same weight, feel, and the hollow sound that real chips make when they're dropped. The team do their own sound tests. This is the real chip, and this is the imposter.
The chips that we made from scratch, it would be like a heavy thud. And so we knew that was going to work.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Weeks go by. The team still hasn't created a chip that will work. Discouraged, several crew members bail. Now, it's just Morikawa and Lewis, but they're not ready to give up. Together, they spend hours studying the chips from the Green Valley Ranch Casino. Each denomination has its own colors. The $100 chip is black and gray, and the $1 chip is gray and teal. Morikawa suddenly realizes it would be easier to modify a chip than to create one from scratch. It's a huge breakthrough.
So I grabbed a Sharpie pen, and I just was like, well, we just need to paint black.
It looks like they can take $1 chips and convert them into $100 chips with a little effort. First, they must remove the $1 inlay from the center.
We tried heating it up to pull it off. Heating it up would bend the chip, so we would put it in boiling water, and it would penetrate the inlay.
The 212-degree water leaves the chip unharmed, but softens the inlay, allowing them to easily pull it off. Next step, duplicating the black and gray shades of the $100 chip.
We would get our paints from an art supply store. We would sit there and just mix the colors, blend them in, and then put it on the real chip, and then wait for it to dry. And we both look at it under light, outside, different types of light, and then make sure the color matched to a T. It was very, very, very close.
Then it's on to the painting. They start with the gray color of the accent stripes, known as pips. Using an airbrush, they cover the entire chip.
It had to be a light spray, which an airbrush spray is really light.
Once the paint dries, they block out the pips with painter's tape. Then airbrush everything else black. When the tape is removed, the colors on the counterfeit chip mirror the authentic one.
Eric Morikawa and Jeremy Lewis really did a good job at matching the colors, and that's not easy to do because the colors are always very unique. You can't do it perfectly. They didn't do it perfectly, but they got them very close.
Once the color's in place, the next step is creating the phony $100 graphic inlay. They scan a real one into a computer, then print it on clear plastic to give it a glossy look. Then the plastic is glued onto a white backing made of bumper sticker paper.
You'd run the inlays through kind of like a pasta roller, and the new inlay would fit perfectly inside the chip.
The chip is ready, except for one crucial detail.
If you were to run this chip underneath the black light, you'll see a glowing top hat and a cane, and that's one of their security features. I went out and got the same colored ink in a pen form, and we would color the top hat and cane in there. And we had a black light set up, so we'd check, position. They're random, so we just put it on there. And as long as it showed something underneath the black light, it would pass.
After a month of work, they finally have 3 $100 counterfeit chips. Morikawa and Lewis head 10 minutes off the Vegas Strip to the Green Valley Ranch Casino in Henderson, Nevada, to see if they can fool the casino.
I don't lie very well, so I can't walk into a casino and keep a straight face and go to the cashier cage and cash the chips. I feel guilty.
Jeremy Lewis takes the lead.
I'm sitting in the parking lot. While he's trying to cash these chips in the casino, I'm hoping, everything's going okay, nothing's going to happen.
Moments later, Lewis reappears.
Ran up to the truck and hopped in and said, drive. And we drove. I thought security was chasing them and looking over our shoulders.
But no one's behind them. And when Morikawa looks over, Lewis has 3 $100 bills in his hand. The counterfeit chips work.
We we were pretty excited. We ran back to the house and made some more.
They could come down into the garage, and within 5 minutes, you could have a brand new chip. It was just that stunningly simple.
Morikawa and Lewis are able to counterfeit 20 chips a day. They plan to work their scam all over town. To match the various chips, they stock up on supplies.
There's different colors on the chips. A lot of it had like glitter, so we would take the glitter pens and dab the glitter in there and give it that metallic look.
They passed fraudulent chips at 8 different casino properties, including Caesar's Palace and Mandalay Bay. These guys were all over town.
They are well on their way to the Cheater Hall of Fame, but they realize that sooner or later, cashing in chips without ever playing a single casino game is bound to arouse suspicion. To avoid getting caught, they need to change their game.
We had to find a way where it was kind of foolproof, where they wouldn't be able to immediately catch on.
To make the scam look legitimate, they start playing at the gaming tables, buying real chips from dealers.
We'd lay $2,000 on the table, they'd give us the chips, and the camera overhead sees that. So we use that to our advantage. And then we would exchange them either in the bathroom or parking lot and get the counterfeit ones, and we'd have the real ones. If you went up to the cage and cashed them out and they caught it, you could always refer back to, hey, that table gave them to me. Later on, taking back the real ones, they wouldn't question it because they were real.
Morikawa and Lewis begin spending more and more time at the casinos.
At the time, we graduated from the $100 chips to the $500, even the $1,000 chips, and the money was coming in. The lifestyle was changing. We were doing a lot of eating out at nice restaurants and being on the strip.
Morikawa keeps the source of his newfound wealth a secret from everyone, including his wife.
At first she asked, but then she was just like, I don't want to know. And she was getting new purses, clothes. At one point, I counted 100 pairs of shoes in boxes in a closet. So, yeah, she was benefiting from it, too.
For 3 months, Eric and his wife enjoy their extravagant new lifestyle. But partner Jeremy Lewis heads down a much different path.
I found him at like an $800 a night suite at the Riviera. The place was bigger than my whole house, and he was there with a bunch of girls. And he hadn't had any sleep, he was wired.
Lewis's lifestyle soon becomes a liability.
One day, he was talking to one of the girls on the phone, and I could overhear him because it was loud. So I told him, hey, hand me the phone, I want to talk to her. So he gave me the phone, and she said, I know everything that you guys do. And I looked down and was like, why would you tell? I mean, my wife doesn't even know. Why would you tell a stranger all this? You know? And, you know, now she wants money. Now we have to pay her.
For a few days, they pay her hush money.
But then she started to want more, and then she was telling us that, hey, my man's in jail. We need to get him out.
I need money, and I want it now.
She threatens to reveal their scam to police in a bid to get her boyfriend's sentence reduced, so they pay her off again. A few days later, it seems like everything has blown over. Morikawa's wife leaves the country to visit her mother. As soon as she's gone, Morikawa and Lewis start planning a trip to Atlantic City to hit their casinos.
I get a knock at a door. There's a guy at the door and says, hey, my son threw a ball in your backyard. Can you go get it? As I was turning around to get the ball out of the backyard, he grabs me, throws me on the ground. 2 other agents jump out of the bushes. They're fully armed, and they're rushing into the house over me.
They are enforcement agents from the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Lewis's blackmailer has apparently turned them in after all.
Enough information was developed to obtain a search warrant. And when the home was searched, every piece of evidence we were looking for was there. The whole setup was found.
The chips are of such quality that some of those that have been passed in the recent past may not have been detected yet.
Stunned Las Vegas authorities must now deal with the fact that 2 construction workers have compromised the security of casino chips. Morikawa and Lewis are in jail. 3 days later, the pair are brought before a judge.
They were given $5 million bail, not for murdering someone, not for raping someone, for counterfeiting casino chips. Our state takes this stuff really seriously.
Since neither can make bail, Morikawa and Lewis are taken back to the maximum security jail. The hefty bail makes Morikawa a celebrity among the inmates.
When I came in there, a bunch of the people were like, oh, wow, your bail's $5 million. They called another guy over and was like, hey, you know, he has a higher bail than you. And he was a Russian guy.
And not just any guy. The man has ties to a Russian gang.
Met him and sat down and talked with him and told him my story, and he was interested. He's all about business, and he was like, you know what, we do need to talk once you get out, if you get out, you know.
A few days later, Morikawa's attorney gets him a new bail hearing.
And it lowered my bail from $5 million to, I think it was like $12,000. So I could bail out.
After ripping off the casinos for tens of thousands of dollars, Morikawa ends up serving just 10 days. Jeremy Lewis, his partner in crime, is not so lucky. His outstanding drug and forgery arrest warrants keep him behind bars. Morikawa is free, but deeply in debt.
I made the house payments. I paid majority of the bills by doing what I was doing. And now I have a case and I need to pay my attorneys.
Desperate, he calls the Russian, who's also just been released from jail. The Russian wants Morikawa to teach him how to make counterfeit chips.
I was very concerned because I knew that if I got caught again, I would not get out.
Once again, faced with overwhelming debts, Morikawa looks to counterfeiting as a way out. But this time, he won't get his hands dirty. For 25% of the profits, he agrees to train the Russians.
I would take roads out of the way to meet with them. I would constantly watch for people in my mirrors and see if anyone was following.
Once the Russians are trained, they begin passing the phony chips at casinos. In Las Vegas, an alert casino employee spots a few of them.
They looked a little different in the rack than the other chips and turned out to be counterfeit. Then we had to do some backtracking and try to find these people.
The investigation leads to the only two people who've ever made chips that can pass for the real thing, Jeremy Lewis and Eric Morikawa. With Jeremy Lewis still in prison, that leaves Morikawa, and agents are closing in.
One day, I was training with the Russian guys, and there's a knock at the door. It's the police. We had all the chips and equipment laying around. I'm looking at the ceiling and trying to figure out a way to get out, and there's no way. So as soon as they came in, I dropped to my knees and put my hands behind my head, and I knew I was arrested again. I'm sitting in jail, and I didn't think I was going to get out until we went to court.
Eric Morikawa hires a shrewd Vegas defense attorney. It's a move that pays off in spades. In 2006, Morikawa makes a deal and pleads guilty to 6 felony counts. He walks with 5 years probation and community service.
The most time I spent in jail was a week and a half when I first got arrested. The second arrest, I was only in there a couple days before I bailed out.
Still, Morikawa must make restitution for all the fraudulent chips he passed.
Restitution is at $36,000 is what they could only find in the chips. I think we did over $1 million. And they claim that they're probably still in circulation. They can't even find them. I would not cheat Vegas again. It's easy money and it's fast, but it's not worth it. It's not worth giving up your livelihood and your family and embarrassing your family, no.
Morikawa's counterfeit scam is a wake-up call for Vegas. Today, many casinos protect their chips using a high-tech device called RFID, short for radio frequency identification.
That has a small electronic chip embedded in the chip somewhere, and can keep track of what the chip is and how many of them are on the table. It's an identifier.
They use RFID scanners at both the gaming tables and the cage, making it impossible for a low-denomination chip to be mistaken for a high one, no matter what the face of the chip reads. While new technology keeps chips safe from manipulation, easy money is always a target for the world-class Vegas cheater. One in particular stands out, both for the simplicity and sheer audacity of his crime: Anthony Carleo.
One of the things about Anthony Carleo was that he seemed to have this need to be a larger-than-life figure. He had this sense of invincibility about him. He's not somebody that lived the life of a criminal. I think he just kind of had this downward spiral, this sudden snapping.
In an exclusive phone interview, Carleo tells us, in his own words, how he became one of Vegas's most notorious criminals.
I don't know if you've ever been on a gambling binge or lost a significant amount of money, but you start losing it, you chase.
With those losses mounting, Carleo is desperate. He concocts a bold plan to capture a cash jackpot.
Your heart's beating, or you're short of breath, a roller coaster ride of adrenaline.
On his motorcycle, Carleo cuts through Vegas traffic with ease. He pulls into the Suncoast Casino.
I basically want to get in and get out in as little time as possible.
The Suncoast is the West Las Vegas hotel casino that's usually frequented by the local neighborhood people.
Leaving the engine running, Carleo walks directly to the cage. Dressed entirely in black with a motorbike helmet, he pulls a pistol from his waistband.
I chose the Suncoast because A, I knew there was going to be a lot of money there, and B, I knew it would be easy to get in and out. At the end of the day, 45 steps into the casino and the same 45 steps out the door.
Told the cashier to reach into the drawer, grab stacks of cash, put it into a bag.
No security guards try to stop him.
It's better to let people have the money. That's really the policy, is to let that happen, because weapons are a liability. You could have somebody wrongfully shoot somebody. So in the end, we'll just call the police. Let them handle it. That's their job. That's what they do.
In just minutes, it's over. Carleo heads into the neon night with almost $20,000.
Once you pull out of the parking lot and you hit the road, you arrive in the safety of your own home. You're sitting there looking at 20 grand, and it's like, oh, wow, that wasn't that bad.
Carleo hits so hard and fast, Vegas is caught off guard. And since his bike helmet and visor make him unidentifiable, the police are left with no clues. Just 5 days later, once again, Carleo gets on his bike and rolls down the heart of the Vegas Strip. This time, he pulls into the opulent Bellagio Hotel and Casino.
I literally parked my motorcycle facing the street. I waved at a security guard.
Carleo jogs into the casino, but the cage is too far away to reach quickly, so he heads to the high-end gaming tables.
Literally just walked up to the back of the table. I told everybody to move. I started grabbing the chips, shoving them in my bag.
Went straight for the high-dollar casino chips, which were the cranberry-colored ones, valued at $25,000. He also grabbed several white ones, which were valued at $5,000.
I can tell you this with almost a moral certainty that had there been more of a presence of security there, I probably would not have had the guts to walk in there. I was also aware of the fact that they did not carry firearms. It shouldn't have been that easy, but unfortunately, it was.
This time, Carleo takes off with more than $1 million worth of chips. Although the chips are embedded with RFID identification devices, they can only be tracked inside the casino. Outside, the tracking devices stop working.
I was actually pursued by a police officer for a period of time. They chased me. It was very short-lived because I was on a motorcycle. I was probably doing 115 to 125 miles an hour.
Carleo disappears into the night. In response to the robberies, casinos across town add undercover personnel to patrol gaming floors. Cages go on high alert. 8 days after the second robbery, authorities get their first break.
Hey guys.
When a dealer from the Bellagio comes forward anonymously, he tells them about a suspicious player who'd been in the day before the heist.
He started talking to him about the possibility of robbing the Bellagio. He said, I'd like to get my hands on some of these cranberries. Cranberries, of course, are worth $25,000.
The dealer patiently listens and has the guy believing that he can trust him. Eventually, he gets the guy's name. It's Anthony Carleo. When investigators look into Carleo's background, they find an unlikely stick-up guy. Carleo is the son of a Las Vegas judge, but he grows up in Pueblo, Colorado with his mother. After moving to Las Vegas in 2009, he enrolls at UNLV to pursue his childhood dream of becoming a physician. He has no criminal record, but in his first semester at college, Carleo gravitates to the casinos.
I was playing at a $2 to $5 Texas Hold'em game, and they go up from there.
Place your bets. Place your
I was playing craps. There was nights I'd go in and use $5,000-$6,000 playing craps.
7 out 7.
Go up and down. You have good days and bad days.
When detectives check his bank records, they discover no reportable income other than a grant check from UNLV for $4,000. From an informant, they also learned that after a car wreck earlier that year, Carleo had been prescribed the narcotic painkiller oxycodone. Anthony Carleo certainly fits a profile of someone desperate enough to steal, but police don't have enough evidence to arrest him. But if it is him, it means there's a gambler with a drug habit and a gun looking to break even. He has an ace in the hole, the $25,000 chips, but cashing them in would be risky.
I didn't intend to grab as many of the big chips that I ended up grabbing. My intent was to grab the $5,000 chips and anything under that amount.
With so many stolen high-end chips on the street, the Bellagio takes action and discontinues the $25,000 chips.
The Bellagio has the authority to withdraw and refuse to accept those denomination chips. The Gaming Control Board then will be conducting an investigation to determine whether or not a person who is presenting those chips actually won them.
The day after the $25,000 chip recall, Carleo returns to the Bellagio, this time without his gun, to play poker and blackjack. The dealer who'd reported him earlier is out of town for the holidays. So when Carleo uses the lower denomination stolen chips, he goes undetected.
I had already been a player at the Bellagio, nothing extravagant, but it was enough to where me cashing in a $5,000 chip would not have raised any red flags.
On New Year's Eve, Carleo again uses the lower denomination chips. He quickly loses $70,000. By the middle of January, he's down more than 100,000 stolen dollars.
Even though it was money that I gained from the robbery, it was still money in my pocket. And to have that and lose it really didn't feel any different than losing it had I not robbed it.
At this point, Carleo has bet so much money, he is considered a high roller. A few days later, he returns to the Bellagio and gets comped a room and meals. When he cashes out more money than he wins, Bellagio's security staff suspects he's using the stolen chips. They notify Metro Police and Nevada Gaming. Now they have Carleo in their sights, but they still have to connect him directly to the robberies. They watch and wait. Carleo's losing streak continues. Sooner or later, he might make a play using one of the $25,000 cranberries that everyone is watching for.
The only way that I could redeem the chips was to either gamble them or exchange them for cash.
To avoid being caught, Carleo attempts to fence the hot chips online.
From day one, I knew that I should have thrown them away. Despite that, I had a hard time throwing $1 million of chips away. It's kind of cool to look at $1 million of chips, whether they were worthless or they had any value whatsoever.
He posts several messages in poker-playing chat rooms.
That was one of the crazy things. He was going, these online poker sites, trying to figure out how to get rid of them.
Though audacious, Carleo's behavior lacks the sophistication of a professional felon.
He even posted a photo of a couple of the cranberry chips, and he called himself the Biker Bandit. He was pretty much saying, "It's me, come and get me."
Well, the Biker Bandit wasn't the sharpest tool in the box, that's for sure.
police get an anonymous tip that Anthony Carleo is calling himself the Biker Bandit, and he's trying to sell his $25,000 cranberry chips for $10,000 cash. Police finally have what they need to set him up. An undercover detective contacts Carleo, posing as a buyer for the stolen chips.
I let myself be vulnerable, I guess, and I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted. That was probably due to greed on some level. It's hard to turn $10,000 away for a piece of plastic in your pocket.
Just a few days later, the trap is set.
Carleo brought in several chips. The undercover cop promised him $100,000. And then when Carleo left the chips, that was it for Mr. Carleo.
The next day, Vegas Metro Police announced Carleo's arrest to the news media.
We want to send a clear message to those who think that they can come to Las Vegas, commit a robbery using a weapon, and get away with it is sadly mistaken.
Anthony Carleo pleads guilty to the casino robberies and is sentenced to serve between 8 and 27 years in prison.
An inmate at Nevada Department of Corrections, Lovelock Correctional Center.
From Lovelock Prison in Nevada, 30-year-old Anthony Carleo reflects on his crimes.
I had an excellent life. I was on the right track. Here I am, going to lose nearly a decade of my life. They could have gave me $10 million to come to 10 years in prison, and I would say, you're crazy. The one thing that can't be replaced is time. Everything else is replaceable.
Most Hall of Fame cheaters aren't as brazen as Anthony Carleo. Instead, they make their mark by taking advantage of easy targets.
He's a predator. He's a shark swimming among the anchovies out there. He's looking for the lazy person. He's trying to find that weak link that we have. And then he's going to go in and take advantage of it.
And there's one cheat who makes it into the Hall of Fame for not knowing when to quit. The Hard Rock Casino. A pit boss notices a player placing large bets at a poker table. He contacts surveillance.
That call came up as we have a high-limit player, and the name was Clifton Burnham. When we went into the system to look up the history of Clifton Burnham, there was a noticeable pattern of wins and losses. He always won on a certain day of the week, and all the rest of the time, it was obvious losses.
His lucky day is Sunday, and June 15th, 2000 happens to be a Sunday. They look back over the past few hours of play. Burnham has been on a winning streak at Pai Gow. Pai Gow is an Asian poker game played against the dealer. But like all casino games, dealers play for the cameras. As the surveillance team watches Burnham, they see a problem, but it's with their own dealer.
If I'm watching a game, the dealers have certain procedures that they have to do at certain times. When they break that procedure, that's a red flag. Then we have to look and see why are they breaking procedures. And if they're breaking the procedures with a certain person, could that person be in collusion with the dealer?
The dealer has worked at the casino for 5 years.
We really didn't have a lot of problems out of him, but at one point, we noticed that he was doing a poor card spread.
Because there are so many ties in Pai Gow, dealer protocol is to spread the cards for the camera. Here, Burnham has lost the hand, but the dealer is doing what's called a quick spread, picking up the cards immediately, making it look like a tie so the player loses no money. So why is this dealer intentionally dumping the game for Burnham's benefit? 1 hour later, they have a possible answer when security has slipped an anonymous letter.
And what this anonymous letter stated was, you have a customer and a dealer who are in collusion on your poker Pai Gow game, and the name this customer is using is Clifton Burnham. But his real name is James Shahady. And at that point, I let out a few expletives, ran back upstairs, and by then he was gone.
James Shahady's reputation is well known in Las Vegas.
Jimmy Shahady was a criminal. He's a career crook.
He's a dirtbag. I went back, pulled the schedule for the previous month to see if there was a correlation between his wins and the dealer that was on the game.
And sure enough, there is a connection. Shahady has been winning for 4 straight Sundays as Clifton Burnham.
He always won, with this particular dealer only.
The dealer, a longtime employee of the Hard Rock, had racked up steep gambling debts.
The dealer in question owed money to a guy from the sports book. He had borrowed money from the guy and couldn't pay it back. That individual in question owed money to James Shahady. So how better to pay it back than to give him a cheating dealer? What a friend, right? Hey, I got a friend. Guy owes me money. He's dealing over at this joint. You go in, he dumps the game to you. We're all happy.
Since the dealer never collects on Shahady's losing bets, Shahady is able to play for hours, making money on every hand he does win.
Basically, he can never lose on this game. So every hand where he's going to lose, he's going to give him the signal, he's going to do the quick spread, throw the cards in the discard, and say it was a push. So every time he wins. Even when he doesn't win, he still wins because he doesn't lose. So they just take the money every time.
Once the dealer repays his debt, he plans to stop cheating. But Shahady isn't willing to let the scam go.
When you find something that good, why would you give it up? This guy, he's not going to let you just walk away. You just committed a felony. You just did something that's going to ruin your life. And I own you for it. The dealer was very scared. Shahady was representing himself as a member of organized crime. He's telling the guy, unless you do what I want, bad things are going to happen to you. And the dealer believed it.
And that's where June 15th, 2000 comes into play. Desperate and looking for a way out, the dealer writes the anonymous letter to security before starting his shift. 2 hours later, security finds the letter. At the same time, surveillance sees a break in procedure. Faced with evidence of a cheat, the Hard Rock calls the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
They came out, looked at the videotape, and at that point, we waited for the following week for Mr. Shahady to come in, and indeed he did.
On the actual security tape, the dealer begins his shift. Moments later, James Shahady sits down and the cheat plays out on camera. After Shahady loses the hand, the dealer picks up the cards and does another quick spread, as if Shahady's hand was actually pushed. That's all authorities need to see.
At that point, the gaming agents came down, arrested the dealer, and arrested Shahady from the casino floor.
After he's dragged away in handcuffs, the dealer confesses. He's been part of the scam for more than a year.
The dealer got himself in too deep. He owed the guy money. Next thing he knows, he's dumping this game for $70,000, $80,000.
For testifying against Shahady, the dealer is let go. Shahady is convicted and is sentenced to 12 to 48 months. A year later, his luck runs out on a Friday night. He dies in prison at the age of 60. Shahady's shameless strong-arming of the Hard Rock dealer earns him a place in the Cheater Hall of Fame. But there's one cheat shrewder, smarter, and more successful than any who have come before or since he hit Vegas: Dennis Nickrash. During his career, he steals a whopping $16 million.
Dennis Nickrash was a genius, and that was one of his strengths. He really knew what was needed to cheat a machine to perform different types of criminal acts.
For him to stop stealing, he'd die of boredom. It's a challenge to him. He has to do it. To show the public that he could do it, to show the Gaming Control Board he could do it, to show the industry he could do it. It was just an ego thing, I believe.
Nickrash's road to infamy begins in Chicago.
Dennis Nickrash started off as a locksmith, and he found that he was very proficient at breaking into locks. And he ended up having some friends who were organized crime and tied to the Genovese crime family. Well, he started working with them, breaking into cars, jewelry stores, and businesses until he eventually got caught.
Dennis Nickrash serves a year in prison. After his release in the 1970s, he sets his sights on Vegas. Using a tool called the slider, he breaks into slot machines.
He could slide the device through the door crack and activate the mechanism with the sliding device and pay out.
As casinos lose money, manufacturers redesign the machines so they are more difficult to cheat. But Nick Rash is undaunted by the changes. He buys a machine and does the impossible, manipulates the slot machine itself to create a winning jackpot on command. Although his precise techniques remain a mystery, the first battle is learning how to open up a slot machine in a casino undetected.
Dennis Nick Rash is a burglar. He's a locksmith, so he could open it without setting off the alarm.
The alarm is a warning alert programmed to go off 5 seconds after the door is opened. So Nick Rash must act quickly. He manually adjusts each of the reels to a jackpot setting. Then he triggers the jackpot bells, closes the door, and all anyone hears is the cheerful dinging of another slot's winner. Nick Rash has the system beat. From 76 to 83, his cunning nets him $10 million.
The interesting part of this is that when we found out about it, that this was going on, we inspected known machines that we knew he had cheated, and there was no indication that the machines had been cheated.
But in 1986, the law finally catches up to him. He serves another 5 years.
Once he got out of jail and back on the streets, things had changed dynamically because of the electronics and the camera surveillance coverage and the type of machines. Video machines rather than real machines. Computer chips and motherboards and all this stuff is out there now. All of Dennis's previous cheating devices, they're antiques, they're basically useless.
But Nick Rash is more than up for the challenge. He sets out to adapt his skills to the computer age.
It's when he went back to the Genovese crime family and was hooked up with a computer expert.
And once Nick Rash gets his hands on an updated slot machine, he comes up with a way to beat the new technology.
He was re-engineering computer code and finding out how to corrupt that code, how to rewrite the code, and more importantly, how to erase the code when the scam was done so that he couldn't be discovered.
Dennis.
Oh, Jimmy.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
They create a small device they could sneak into a casino.
And this handheld computer would have to be inserted into the circuit board, placed on top of the RAM, where they would input the winning combination.
Dennis was able to override the computer by piggybacking one computer chip on top of another computer chip inside the machine and set up the jackpots.
Good luck.
There's just one last detail to address: not getting caught.
And he would usually have a group of people with him. They're called blockers, and their jobs were to block the cameras and block security guards from seeing what he was doing. After they decided which slot machine and which casino they would hit, they would set up cameras, surveillance cameras, in his garage at a similar angle. And then he and his blockers would practice how to block the cameras, and they would know exactly where they were supposed to stand.
In the fall of 1996, Nick Rash and his team hit the casinos.
Dennis Nick Rash would set up his blockers, enter the casino. He would use his locksmith skills to open the door. Then he would insert his handheld computer and install the winning combination. Once he completed that, which only took a matter of seconds, then he would leave the casino and the collector would sit down, hit the button, wheels would start rolling, the blockers would move away, and the cameras would show the winning combination rolling into place.
The team's first hit is modest for Nick Rash, $30,000. But he soon grows bolder. 8 months later, Nick Rash and his team take Harrah's for $3.8 million. Then they cheat the Rio and Luxor and other casinos for millions more.
Dennis Nick Rash usually took about 70% and split 30% among all of his assistance.
He stole and stole and stole. Eventually, something's going to happen.
The camera is going to be right here on 2 o'clock up around the corner.
For the cheat to keep working, Nick Rash regularly replaces his team.
You had to have different people collect because you can't have the same person at one casino win a $3 million jackpot and then 2 days later win another jackpot at a different casino. So he had to have collectors that he could cycle through.
The problem with having a large team of people working together is somebody's going to get unhappy, somebody's going to get in a fight, somebody's going to rat you out.
In 1998, Nick Rash is plotting his biggest heist yet, the Megabucks jackpot worth $17 million. He has Vegas in the palm of his hand. But 300 miles away, his plan starts unraveling.
One of his accomplices got in trouble with the FBI in Phoenix, Arizona. He started talking about Dennis Nick Rash and how he was cheating at slot machines.
Working with the FBI, the Nevada Gaming Control Board gets a search warrant for Nick Rash's home. Detectives find 2 slot machines, along with dozens of cheating devices. In his safe deposit box, they discover the handheld computer he uses to cheat the slots. After a 2-decade crime spree that nets $16 million, the king of slot cheats' reign is finally over. Nick Rash is arrested for the last time. Dennis Nick Rash is convicted and offered a deal by prosecutors, a lighter sentence in exchange for revealing how his scams work. As a criminal, Nick Rash is a consummate professional. He refuses. He later tells interviewers, "I have no desire to explain anything, never smarten up a chump." He is sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. He is released in 2004 and dies in 2010, and the secrets to his extraordinarily successful cheats die with him. But in Vegas, legends live on, and Dennis Nick Rash has secured his place in the Cheater Hall of Fame.
Dennis Nick Rash is one of the greatest cheaters that we've ever caught in the history of Nevada. There's a lot of cheaters out there, and hopefully they're not as successful as Dennis Nick Rash was.
Only time will tell if another criminal mastermind is out there right now. A future Hall of Famer beating the casinos with a cheat no one's ever pulled off before.
The message I would give to someone who's thinking of cheating Vegas is practice, practice, practice. Because we're good. We do this all the time. We do it every day. So you should be good when you come in to do it. You're probably going to end up in jail. And that's permanent. You know, you're going to get caught.